What is up, everyone? I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. We got some juicy news about upcoming changes to the game, guys. Now, yesterday we had some news and the champion rebalance was pretty weak sauce, okay? Now, today we are talking about Blessings rebalance. How good is it going to be? Now, there are some very concerning things, in my opinion, with this. There are some good changes coming to it as well. We got quite a few different blessings that were pretty weak sauce before, and they will be a bit better now. The main thing that is concerning to me is the stat blow, okay? It seems like every time they're doing a rebalance for blessings, they're increasing the stats to wow, you know? So again, we're getting a massive stat blow on every single blessing, which really makes you feel like you can't live without them, okay? So I feel like at the moment, not many people are spending money on soulstones except the big krakens and the whales, you know? And the rest of the people are like, yeah, whatever, they're there, I don't really care about them so much, you know? Yeah, it's nice to have them, but it's not mandatory. And I feel like they're just pushing it to such a level where you need to have them. You need them, you cannot live without them. And that's basically because we're getting stats blow all the time. Now, I do think they should buff the way we are acquiring these soulstones, because at the moment you're barely getting any, and it's not just the soulstones, are the actual souls, right? So we're barely getting any essence, we're barely getting any soulstones by playing the game, unless you are willing to spend hundreds of dollars, literally, you know? So I feel like if you are looking to make them so important that people cannot ignore the blessings anymore, you should consider and give a buff to whatever drops these materials, you know? Like we've talked about it on the channel quite a few times, you know, and I do hope they are planning to do something about this too. Iron Twins Fortress is a joke. It barely gives you anything. Hydrite gives you, like, if you're lucky, 11 or 12 stones weekly if you're doing all the Hydra. If you're unlucky, you can get like 8, maybe 7, you know? So those are the small stones, and the rest you can win every now and then, one of them in an event or in a tournament, which again, let's be honest, is nothing wow. But of course, you can pay $50 for a few small soul stones and 5 medium ones, which is just crazy, you know? So hopefully they will do something else to be able to acquire them easier. Now, a blessing at the moment, guys, usually gives 3 different stats, okay? Not very often where it gives you 4, but sometimes it gives you 4. So it will give you HP, it will give you accuracy and speed. If we're gonna go on a damage one, this will give you 4 stats because it will give you 1000 HP. The very first thing that is changing to blessings, guys, and this is the more concerning part to me, is that every single blessing, it will have every single stat, okay? Every blessing will have every single stat. So a Krutraxa will gain accuracy, resistance, defense, HP, and attack. Now, some of you guys might be like, well, that's not bad. My champion will get better if you have the blessing, okay? 6-star blessings will be crazy. And the main thing that will be crazy, the mythical champions will get such an insane amount of stats. It will be just disgusting, okay? So right now, with a blessing on, okay, like you're getting all these extra stats. So I have 7000 HP. Now, add to it 750 defense, add to it 90 accuracy or whatever you're getting. Maybe not 90, but just as an example, you know, 90 resistance. Yeah, it is 90 actually. So 60, 80, 90 resistance, 90 accuracy on all of them. Add on top of it 7000, 8000, 11,500 HP, 20 speed, you know, like, my god, they will be so freaking powerful, okay? So I just wanted to point that out. In a way, it's good because this will allow us to use different blessings on defense nukers, on HP nukers, that they were not really giving value to these champions. But I feel like they could have done a different thing. Just make it scale with the type of the champion that has the blessing on. Maybe that's too complicated, you know? But that being said, let's quickly see what is Plarium saying about the blessings, right? So, Polymorph rebalance, we've been waiting for it for quite a while. Then we have a full or partial rework of certain blessings. Some of them are completely changed. And blessing stat bonuses. Previously, each blessing provided its unique set of bonuses to the champions, and Because the bonuses could vary from blessings to blessings, this would force a player to make a difficult choice when prioritizing and choosing between stat bonuses and the value of the skill itself. Which, yes, is very, very true. And in a way, they are fixing this issue, but I feel like they are kind of like opening a bigger problem with it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe it's not such a big deal to have all the stats on all of the champions and just power creeping everything, you know. But who knows? Who knows? So the Dark Resolve Blessing, before it had a chance to put Freeze, Provoke, or True Fear. This was pretty weak because it was just a chance. And yeah, the Dark Resolve will increase the damage inflicted by this champion according to the number of dead allies on their team. Doesn't increase the damage from poison, HP burn, and bomb. So this could potentially come in handy on some damage dealers, you know, like 5% damage for each dead ally. You could find some more niche use for this blessing, but again, it's not going to be something spectacular, but it can be something decent, you know. Then we have Emergency Heal, formerly known as the Carapace. So this champion will receive less damage when under stun or crowd control debuffs. This was a very, very weak blessing, honestly, and they completely changed the name of it, and they completely changed what the blessing does. Heals this champion whenever a shield buff placed on them expires, is removed, or is broken by an enemy attack. The value of the heal is equal to a portion of this champion's max HP, at 6-star 15%. This is better. You're getting some healing back whenever a shield breaks. Now, I know having a blood shield accessory will not generate a big shield. It will not generate after a big healing or anything like that. But it will be nice when you have a champion that will buff shield on your team. 100% it will be nice and much better than what it was before. Then we have the Faultless Defense. So I'm not feeling this one. I feel like this is a nerf for this blessing, because this was niche, but it was very useful for early clan boss when they multi-hit on affinities. Good for Amias, good for even the Iron Twins Fortress, you know. This champion will receive less damage from each subsequent hit from multi-hit skills. The damage reduction increases with every additional hit. So having the damage reduction was nice, was still niche, but was good. Instead, we're getting whenever an enemy attacks an ally under an increased defense buff placed by this champion, reflects a portion of the damage back to the attacker. So you basically need to put that increased defense. Now, reflect damage is weak in the game, especially for PvP, because if you're having a shield on your team, you're not going to reflect any damage back, because you're basically not taking any damage on your HP. It goes to the shield, you know. So this is definitely a nerf in my opinion. I feel like they messed that up, you know. They messed this one up. Then we have the Heaven Cast. Debuffs placed by this champion's default skill will ignore a percentage of the target's resistance. This was actually pretty weak sauce, okay? This was weak sauce. You could have used it on a champion like a Royal Guard, a champion like Husk, but then there's so many better blessings for those champions as well, you know? So I don't think this was great. Then, after the change, increases the damage inflicted by this champion according to the number of buffs on them. So the more buffs on your team, the more damage for each buff. Much, much better. I'm definitely feeling this one. Of course, it won't increase the damage from poison bombs or HP burn. But hey, let's just say you're running some nice comp. It might give you some extra damage. Now, the question is, guys, will this replace Phantom Touch and other blessings like this on most of the champions? I feel like for a champion like Husk, even Royal Guard potentially, this will be better for Hydra, honestly, because you're getting your damage boosted. But if this doesn't affect the cap on the enemy max HP, it won't be better. This is something that I'm not going to be able to tell you right now without testing it, you know. But I don't think it looks better. Then we have the Indomitable Spirit. This had a chance to block stun, sleep, and fear debuffs whenever an enemy tries to place them on the champion. After has a chance of blocking any crowd control debuffs whenever an enemy tries to place them on the champion. And at 6 that is a 30% chance. So it's definitely not too bad, and it has no cooldown. So it's a bit better, but it's still a lot of RNG, and considering that we're now really in a crowd control meta, is pretty pointless against bosses. usually the debuffs cannot be resisted against most of them, so it's not really that powerful, but it's a bit better maybe. Iron Will decreases the damage this champion receives from enemy skills activated by other skills or when enemies inflict damage when it's not their turn. Counterattacks, ally attacks, etc. So this after will decrease the damage this champion receives according to the number of debuffs on them. Again, it won't affect the poison, HP burn, or bombs. So again, debuffs, you need to have a lot of debuffs to actually make it count. And do we really get a lot of debuffs on us? In a way, I can say that, yeah, it might be good for squishy champions in harder content where the bosses debuff you a lot. So I guess it's not that bad. Before, it wasn't that good either, you know? So I'm not that impressed with this one in particular, but I feel like it will have a bit of a more use than the previous one, you know? So, okay. Little Dose, such a miss-off again, unfortunately, because, yeah, it increases the damage enemies receive from poison debuffs. But it only works in Arena, man, so this sucks. Like, it's useless. You know, you have Stone Skin everywhere in Arena, immunity, cleanse. Poison just doesn't deal enough damage against a champion that doesn't have very high HP. And the change will basically be to boost the damage. Just double the damage, basically, you know? And I just don't think it's anywhere close to be enough because people will still not use this one. This should be as the initial form right here, 25%, 50%, 100%, and let it work in all the content. That's what will make this blessing decent. That's how people will choose to use a blessing like this. If no, who will use this for Arena, you know? And finally, guys, this is the thing that I hate the most, and that is the Polymorph, okay? And finally, we are getting a change to it. Now, it's still a bit unclear on how this will work, but let me just basically tell you what changed. So initially, the Polymorph worked in the following way. Has a chance of placing a ship debuff on enemy champions for 2 turns whenever they place debuffs on this champion or remove or steal buffs from them. This debuff cannot be blocked as well as placed on a boss. So, for example, let's just take a champion like Madame Series. So, Madame Series will basically have different effects, okay? Madame Series removes all buffs from enemies, places a decreased attack and a decreased defense on all enemies. So initially, when you were trying to do this on an enemy with 1 debuff, you had 3 chances to get Polymorph. 20%, 20%, 20%, okay? This is happening right now in the game. If you are trying to remove the buffs from an enemy that has 5 buffs, and you're doing all these 3 effects, basically you're going to trigger the Polymorph check for every single buff you're attempting to remove. So just removing the buff from the enemy will have 5 chances to polymorph you, considering that the enemy had 5 buffs. So 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. Then you have 2 debuffs going to the enemy, decrease attack and decrease defense. 20% plus 20% more. So basically 20% multiplied by 7. That's how, by 7 times, okay? So it's not the math, that's not how you do the math for it. But that's how many times was basically triggering the polymorph, okay? So that was absolutely busted. It's just insane, okay? These champions just suck in Arena at the moment. Well, the next change is that has a chance of placing a ship debuff on enemy champions for 2 turns whenever they place debuffs on this champion. Or when an enemy removes or steals buffs from them. Occurs once per enemy turn. This debuff cannot be blocked or placed on bosses. So that's why I'm saying it's still very unclear what it means. Occurs once per enemy turn. Once per enemy turn, to me, it means that I am attempting to use my skill and my turn is gone. And if there are 4 different champions in the team, probably not all 4 of them will try to trigger my polymorph, to react to my debuff. But I think I'm a bit confused by their wording, okay? And I'm gonna explain you what it could potentially happen. Potentially, this could basically work the opposite way of what I explained you now with Madame Series. So if an enemy has 5 debuffs and my skill has 3 effects on it, it will only trigger Polymorph check once instead of 7 times, okay? So that would be okay. That's kind of like what it needs to be done. But honestly, just judging by their wording, it doesn't sound to me like that is the case, you know? A curse once per enemy turn. Enemy turn, okay? So my Ramantu takes a turn, uses the skill. I don't know. I'm confused, okay? I'm confused. Probably you're confused. But if you're not, let me know in the comments down below. Do you guys think that it will work how I just mentioned? Just trigger once per entire skill rather than per effect? That would be the right thing to do. I do hope that that's the case, actually. I do hope that that's the case. If no, it's a bit confusing by judging by their wording, you know? And now it means that most probably it's pointless to have 4 champions in a team with Polymorph. And it's been pointless for quite a while now, but probably if we are going to go to Arena, you know, like, let's see what we have right here. You see, we have no Polymorph. We have 1, 2, but it's 5-star. And you have a 6-star Polymorph. So having 1, 2, 3 Polymorphs is going to be pretty pointless, in my opinion. I think that's the case, you know. So hopefully that will create more diversity on what sort of blessings we're actually using and how the meta will be played. Hopefully champions like Ramantu, Madame Series, Ryan the Conjurer, Kaimar, etc. will be coming out to play a bit more. Yeah, we do have Stone Skin and the rest, guys, but I do think that it could potentially be pretty interesting, you know? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Which one of the blessing changes is your most favorite one? And yeah, that was all for today's video. Definitely better news than the champion rebalance we had yesterday. Appreciate every single one of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.